For 3 years, Dr. Marcus Ray looked me in the eye and told me the pain in my abdomen was just anxiety. 3 years of blood tests he never ordered, scans he never approved, and prescriptions for sedatives I never needed. He didn't know that one day I would be signing his termination papers. If you enjoy stories like this, hit subscribe, because what happened next still gives me chills. My name is Elena Voss, and at 26, I was a third-year surgical resident at Ashford Memorial Hospital, one of the top teaching hospitals in the state. My father, Daniel, had been a general practitioner for 30 years before he retired, and he was the reason I went into medicine in the first place. He used to say, "A good doctor listens twice as much as he talks." I believed that. I built my entire career on that belief. Dr. Marcus Ray was different. He was 52, silver-haired, charming in that practiced way senior doctors get after decades of being obeyed without question. When I first started having sharp pains on my right side, my father told me, "Get it checked properly, Elena. Don't let anyone brush you off." I should have listened harder to that warning. Instead, I trusted the system. I trusted my supervising physician. Dr. Ray was my attending during my rotation, and when I first mentioned the pain to him in the break room, he smiled that easy smile and said, "Residency does this to everyone. You're stressed, you're exhausted, your body's reacting. It's anxiety." I was 23 years old and eager to be taken seriously as a doctor myself. I didn't push back. The first year, it was manageable. Mild flare-ups, maybe once a month. Dr. Ray prescribed me lorazepam and told me to manage my stress better. I took the pills. I told myself he was right. After all, he had 30 years of experience and I had 3. By the second year, the pain sharpened. It came at night, waking me up doubled over, sweat soaking through my scrubs. I went to him again. This time, he barely looked up from his charts. "You're catastrophizing," he said. "Classic resident burnout. I've seen it 100 times. He didn't order a single scan. Not an ultrasound, not a CT, nothing. He just increased my prescription and sent me back to 12-hour shifts. My best friend and fellow resident, Priya Nadeem, was the only person who believed something was actually wrong. "Elena, you're the least anxious person I know," she told me one night after she found me crying in the on-call room, clutching my side. "This isn't in your head. You need a second opinion." I told her I couldn't. Going over Dr. Ray's head as a resident could end my career before it started. He controlled my evaluations. He controlled my recommendation letters. He controlled, in every practical sense, my future. That was the isolation phase, though I didn't call it that then. I stopped mentioning the pain to my co-residents because I didn't want to be labeled the anxious one. I stopped going to Priya with updates because I felt embarrassed, like I was failing at being a doctor by not being able to fix myself. I even stopped calling my father as often because every conversation ended with him asking, "Did you get that scan yet?" And me lying, saying, "Soon, Dad, soon." The first major incident came 18 months in. I collapsed during a 20-hour shift right in the hallway outside the ICU. My vision went white, my knees buckled, and I hit the floor hard enough to split my lip open. A nurse found me and called a code. When I woke up in the emergency bay, Dr. Ray was standing over me, not with concern, but with irritation. "This is what happens when you don't manage your anxiety," he said, in front of 2 nurses and another resident. "I told you to take the medication as prescribed." He didn't order imaging. He didn't ask what I'd eaten, whether I'd been in pain, whether something might be physically wrong. He wrote, "Syncope, likely anxiety-related, patient non-compliant with treatment in my chart and sent me home for 48 hours of rest. That night, my father drove 3 hours to see me. He sat on the edge of my bed, held my hand, and said quietly, "Elena, I did not raise a doctor to let another doctor gaslight her out of her own body." It was the first time anyone had said the word gaslight out loud, and it cracked something open in me. I started keeping a journal. Every pain episode, every dismissal, every prescription, I wrote it all down, dated and detailed, the way my father had taught me to chart symptoms since I was a little girl shadowing him at his clinic.
I called my father that night. I called Priya right after. Together, the three of us built a case. My father, still respected in the medical community after 30 years, helped me get an independent OBGYN to finally examine me, properly, thoroughly, without dismissal. Within a week, I had a diagnosis: a large ovarian cyst, twisted and inflamed, dangerously close to rupture. 3 years. 3 years of just anxiety, and I had been one bad night away from the same fate as that other patient. Priya helped me gather statements, quietly, carefully, from 2 other former residents Dr. Ray had dismissed the same way. My father, using his old professional network, connected me with a malpractice attorney who specialized in physician misconduct. We built a file: my journal, my medical records, the buried settlement memo, and 3 corroborating testimonies. The confrontation happened in the boardroom during what Dr. Ray thought was a routine meeting about the chief surgeon search. Instead, the hospital's ethics board was waiting, along with my attorney and Dr. Kim, the outgoing chief. I stood at the front of that room in my white coat, my hands steady for the first time in 3 years, and I read my timeline out loud. Every dismissed complaint, every missed scan, every night I nearly died in a hospital full of doctors who were supposed to protect me. Dr. Ray's face went the color of paper. He tried to interrupt, tried to call it a misunderstanding, tried to say I was emotional. But this time, the room didn't believe him. Dr. Kim, who had mentored me since my first year, looked at him and said, "Marcus, you buried a $340,000 settlement and let it happen again, twice that we know of." The ethics board suspended his license pending a full investigation. Within 4 months, after the second and third victims came forward publicly, the state medical board revoked it permanently. He never practiced medicine again. I had my surgery. I recovered. And 18 months later, when the hospital reopened the chief surgeon search after Dr. Kim's official retirement, the board didn't just consider me, they chose me. 28 years old, the youngest chief surgeon in Ashford Memorial's history, walking into the same office where Marcus Ray once dismissed my pain as nothing more than nerves. The first thing I did in that role was implement a mandatory second opinion protocol for any resident who reported chronic symptoms more than twice without imaging. We named it, informally, Elena's Rule. My father when I told him. Priya still works beside me today, my closest colleague and friend. And every year, on the anniversary of my surgery, I send a quiet thank you note to the 2 other women who came forward, because their courage, alongside mine, is the only reason any of us are still standing. If this story moved you, hit subscribe, because next week I'm telling you about the woman who discovered her husband's second family through a hospital bracelet he forgot to take off. You won't want to miss it.
The apology phase always followed the same pattern. After the collapse, Dr. Ray softened for exactly 11 days. He gave me lighter rotations, complimented my sutures, told the chief resident I had real potential. I let myself believe things had changed. Then, on day 12, I mentioned the pain again. It had returned, worse than before. And he snapped at me in front of a patient's family, telling me to get it together before I embarrassed the department. The calm phases kept shrinking. 11 days became 6, 6 became 2, then came the ticking clock. Ashford Memorial announced that its chief surgeon, Dr. Harold Kim, was retiring after 20 years, and the hospital board was opening an internal search for his replacement, a search that would include a full review of resident files, attending evaluations, and any formal complaints in the department. Dr. Ray, hungry for the political capital of controlling that search committee, suddenly wanted every resident file clean, mine included. That's when I found it. I was pulling patient files for a case review one night when I stumbled across something that shouldn't have been in the shared drive, an internal memo from 3 years earlier. It was a malpractice settlement, quietly resolved, involving a different patient Dr. Ray had also dismissed as anxious for months before she was finally diagnosed with a ruptured ovarian cyst that led to sepsis. The hospital had paid her family $340,000 to keep it out of court. I sat there in the dim light of the records room, my hands shaking, because I finally understood. I wasn't the first. I might not even be the 10th.